Hello, welcome to the monthly webinar on Southwest drought conditions and resources. My name is Laura Haskell. I am the drought coordinator for the Utah Division of Water Resources. I have been working on drought since 2018. These monthly 30-minute briefings began during the 2020 Southwest drought as part of the Southwest Drought Learning Network's monitoring and reporting team, and will continue as long as there is interest in this type of information and format. These are casual conversations that highlight the current state of drought across the Southwest and some of the great work that is happening across the region to help build resilience in drought conditions. I'd like to acknowledge the other co-organizers of these webinars who work hard each month to make them happen. These are Emily Elias, the director of USDA Southwest Climate Hub, Joel Lisenby, and Gretel Follingstad at NOAA's National Integrated Drought Information System, and Curtis Rigtaney from the National Drought Mitigation Center at the University of Nebraska-Lincoln. The Drought Learning Network aims to support peer-to-peer learning by linking climate service providers with resource managers and resource managers with one another, to share ideas, experience, and information that will increase landscape and community resilience in current and future drought. If you would like to be a part of the Drought Learning Network, please let us know. Before we get started, a little bit of housekeeping. For this webinar, everyone is muted and the webinar is being recorded. The webinar recording will be available from the NIDIS YouTube channel and at drought.gov/webinars. The format of today's webinar will be a presentation by each of our invited experts, and after each presentation, there will be a time for questions. If you'd like to ask a question, you may do so at any time by typing your question into the question box within GoToWebinar. When you log off the webinar, you'll be invited to take a short survey. If you have a project that is designed to help build drought resilience in the Southwest US that you would like to present at a future webinar, please add that as a comment in the survey. I would like to go ahead and welcome and introduce today's speakers. We will first hear from Brian Fuchs. Brian is a faculty member and climatologist at the National Drought Mitigation Center, housed at the University of Nebraska. Brian oversees the monitoring program section at the NDMC and has been a U.S. Drought Monitor author since 2005. Brian is the liaison between the NDMC and the USDA OCE for the coordination of several cooperative agreements, which include activities with the USDA climate hubs. After Brian's presentation, he will take some questions, and then we will hear from Kelsey Sadolino. Kelsey is the Digital Communication Coordinator for NOAA's National Integrated Drought Information System, or NIDIS, and she works for the Cooperative Institute for Research in Environmental Sciences at the University of Colorado Boulder. Kelsey supports NIDIS digital communication efforts, including content development, user feedback and engagement, and strategic planning for the U.S. Drought Portal, which is drought.gov. And I will pass the presentation on to Brian.
All right, can everyone hear me okay? See my slides?
Yes.
So yeah, I'm going to go through the update here for the region. And unlike some past presentations that I've given for the Southwest, this one's actually has some good news in it. So when we look at where we're at and how we got here, one thing to really look at is just looking at precipitation during the current water year. So that started back in October and through this week. And you can see that much of this map for much of the region, we're seeing greens, blues, purples, even some pinks in there. And those are all areas that had normal to above normal precipitation since October 1. We do see some pockets in there of some drier regions that are still hampering some of the drought recovery in the region, but for the most part, conditions have been fairly favorable and where we did see drought recovery. The other portion to this too is looking at temperatures. And since the water year of starting last October 1st, we can see that almost the entire region has been anywhere from 2 to 4 degrees below normal temperatures for this time, and even some pockets in parts of Nevada and the Rocky Mountains there, where it's anywhere from 4 to 6 or even up to 8 degrees below normal for the current water year. So above normal precipitation and below normal temperatures is a very good combination as far as showing drought relief, which is what I'm going to be showing here. So the current U.S. Drought Monitor map came out last week on Thursday, and you can see across the country, much of the plains and into the Midwest is where we're seeing drought. But across much of the West, outside of the Pacific Northwest, yeah, there's still some pockets of drought lingering on, and you see the L label, meaning that all these are areas of long-term drought, that we realize that the short-term conditions are very favorable, like I described, but there's still some long-term drought issues hanging on in some of these areas. And when we look at the West as a whole, we can start to zoom in and kind of see with some finer detail what's going on. And a couple of the highlights on this region here, looking at the chart to the right of the map, is, you know, back at the start of the water year, this region shown, right at 74% of this region was in some level of drought. And that's dropped all the way down to 15%. Back at the beginning of the water year, we were just under 20% of this region was in extreme or exceptional drought. And right now we see none of that on this map. And you can even go back to a year ago and those numbers are even a little bit higher in places. But what's really safe to say is throughout the entire West, we have seen a dramatic decrease in the amount of drought. And that can be coupled back again to what we saw through the fall and winter months and even into spring over much of the region. We can even do the same thing here and zooming into the Southwest. And again, comparing a year ago to now, a year ago, we had almost 97% of this region in drought of some level, and that's at about 9.5% now. And when we start looking at things like extreme and exceptional drought, or even just exceptional drought by itself, you know, last year at this time, we had about 16.5% of the region was an exceptional drought. We have none today. And about 55% of the region was an extreme or exceptional drought a year ago, and we have none today. So just a dramatic turnaround for a long-term drought situation. Again, like Laura said in the intro, we've been kind of following this since way back in 2020. And I like to see this side by side. So what I did was take the regional Southwest map for the drought monitor from last year and comparing it to this year. And you can just see side by side where these numbers are coming into play. And again, just those dramatic changes like I mentioned on the previous slides. And, you know, with the good news, it's like, well, is this going to continue or what are we going to trend towards? And so looking at some of the outlooks going forward, this one here is looking 6 to 10 days out, and temperatures are in the upper left and precipitation in the lower right. And what we're seeing is in the Southwest region, there is a mixed signal. Some of the region is going to see above normal chances of below normal temperatures through the Colorado into New Mexico area, parts of the plains as well. And also some of the same areas, we're going to have above normal chances of above normal temperatures during this time, especially as you get into portions of Nevada, Utah, Arizona, and California, with that bullseye kind of in northern Nevada. Looking at precipitation, as it has been through the last several months, we do see a fairly good indication of continuing above normal precipitation chances from Wyoming through Colorado into New Mexico, even into portions of Utah. But then we do see this signal starting out through parts of Nevada and Arizona, where there's a pretty good signal of showing above normal chances of below normal precipitation. Looking 8 to 14 days out, temperatures in the upper left, precipitation again on the lower right. We'll start with temperatures. It seems like more of that summertime temperatures that we've been used to over the years are starting to set into the region, especially in portions of Arizona and New Mexico, where there's a pretty good indication of above normal temperatures during this time. But still, right over Wyoming and the northern to central Rockies, still this signal of below normal temperatures hanging on. And then precipitation, very similar to what we saw in the 6 to 10 day, except there's more near normal. And again, until the monsoon season really kicks in, dry conditions are fairly normal through this region. So even near normal or maybe even slightly below typically doesn't cause too much angst, at least over the next couple weeks or so. As we go into July, we can again look at those temperatures on the left, and what we're seeing is, especially again through Arizona, New Mexico, maybe into portions of Utah and Colorado, there's a pretty good signal of above normal chances of above normal temperatures during this time. Then the one thing that starts showing up in July here and the precipitation is, again, right south of the Four Corners in Arizona and New Mexico, there's this signal developing that's showing above normal chances of below normal precipitation. This is for the entire month of July and was just issued a couple weeks ago. But for those that do follow the seasonal monsoon in the Southwest, this starts to become a little concerning. And as we go into our 3-month outlook from July all the way through September, as expected, above normal temperatures are expected with throughout much of the region. And then we start again looking at this precipitation, and we see parts of the northern Rockies to the plains showing above normal chances of above normal precipitation, but again centered right on Arizona and where we see the seasonal monsoon impact mostly is all the way through September. Now this signal of above normal chances of below normal precipitation starts to kind of sit in quite strong. And again, if we're going to start seeing drought developing again in this region, it's probably going to be a combination of these temperatures and also seeing below normal monsoon activity. So again, this is just an outlook. We're going to have to see how it plays out, but it's something to pay attention to as the Climate Prediction Center continues to update these products going forward. And the seasonal drought outlook just came out on June 15th as well. And the signal through over the much of the Southwest, if not all of the Southwest, is the pockets of drought that we're seeing. Those long-term drought pockets are going to persist. Maybe a little drought development in New Mexico during this time. And we are seeing that again up in the Pacific Northwest, persistence and maybe even some drought development there. And again, this takes us all the way out through the end of September. And as we see the updates come along the third Thursday of every month, it'll be interesting to see over the Southwest if that quiet monsoon signal for precipitation continues and that signal for above normal temperatures continues. I would expect this product to change if that is the case. So with that, my contact information, my email is up there. And if there's time for some questions, I'll do those. Thank you.
Great, excellent. Thank you so much, Brian. Somebody noted that they report precipitation around Bernalillo, New Mexico, and they haven't had any measurable rain since May 19th, and it's been above average temperatures. So that's one of those pockets where it might be very dry with low humidity. So I wanted to note that. And then I also had a question for you, Brian. So you showed this amazing change, and we should all be celebrating now, going in the past year from about 97% to 9% drought. And so having done work in drought for a long time, what should people be doing now when we have this reprieve in drought?
Yeah, that's a great question. When you're not seeing drought, that's the best time to go back and kind of review, critique how any of the mitigation type activities that were in place or any of the adaptation type activities that were in place, how did they perform during the drought episode? Again, it was a long-term, and some of these areas still continuing, but still a long-term drought episode that we'd seen some fairly intense drought. So now when things are quieter, it's a good time to go back and just see how that performed, especially any of the resource managers out there, any of the plans that you had in place, just how did they perform? Or if there was something that you implemented during the drought and it really did help. That now's a good time to start sharing that, and the Drought Learning Network is a great avenue to do that.
Excellent. Thanks so much, Brian. If anyone has other questions for Brian, you can drop them into the chat or into the questions rather and go to webinar. One more question just came in. Is the removal of drought in the Southwest this winter, spring the largest decrease, or have other wet years performed similarly? So have we seen something similar in the past?
You know, looking without going through and looking at the statistics exactly, it's tough to say if it was the the biggest turnaround or the best improvement that we've seen. There have been some other years, especially in the early to mid 2000s, that we saw some of this as well. But I think it's very possible it could be. And yeah, if you want an exact answer on that, please get in touch with me or with Emily or Joel, and they can pass that question along to me, and I can crunch through some of those numbers to see just where this turnaround did rank.
Excellent, thanks so much. And so that's a good point. If you have more questions, please send them along and we'll make sure to follow up with you after this webinar. But in the interest of time, we'll move on to hearing from Kelsey Satellino, and Kelsey will talk to us and present the new state pages on the drought.gov website. Kelsey.
Thank you, and hopefully everyone can see my screen. I'm going to assume that everyone can, unless someone says something else. So hi, I'm Kelsey Satellino. I'm the Digital Communications Coordinator with the National Integrated Drought Information System. And today I want to take just a few minutes to give you a live demonstration of one of the new features on the US Drought Portal, or www.drought.gov. And that's our expanded and improved state pages. So NIDIS worked with a team at NOAA's National Centers for Environmental Information to update the state pages in collaboration with state partners as well. And we launched these new state pages in April. You can see an example here of our New Mexico state page. The goal was to provide a landing page for state drought information that is useful for decision-making, communication, and more, and also directs users to key drought resources at the state level. So I want to take you through a very brief demo of our New Mexico state page as an example and highlight a few key new features on these pages that we hope are useful for drought monitoring, communications, and planning in the Southwest and across the rest of the country. I'll start by letting everyone know the way you can access these state pages. You go to the By Location section in the main site menu of drought.gov. Under Browse by Scale, you'll see a link for state. You can also go to this Select a State dropdown and select your state directly from this dropdown menu. In addition, I'll just call out that the URL for these pages is drought.gov/states/ the name of the state. So that's another easy way to access these. Now, each of our state pages start with a series of statistics providing high-level sound bites to help tell the story of drought in that particular state. We've added these as a communications resource, and we've also tried throughout the maps and data on these pages to make the information really accessible both to drought experts and curious citizens, reporters, and other drought communicators. So regardless of your level of expertise, to make that first layer of information really accessible and easily understandable. However, we've also tried to make it easier for those who have more expertise to dig deeper and find more information. So for example, with our statistics here, you can click Learn More about these stats or learn more about these data underneath any of the maps on this page. And that will take you to a detailed data page, which explains more information on the source of each of the statistics and maps on this page, how frequently each of those is updated, the valid date for all of those statistics, as well as links to access the original data source in many cases. Underneath these high-level statistics, you'll see the first of many interactive maps on this page, and that's one of the big new features for our state pages is the addition of a lot more interactive maps and some improvements to those maps in terms of usability and customization. So this is the latest US Drought Monitor map for the state of New Mexico, and you'll notice you can zoom in or out, pan to a region of interest, and click on any county in the state to view county level conditions. If you click this link in the pop-up, it will take you to the county page on drought.gov for that particular county. You can also scroll down in the bottom right corner of this map. You'll see a View County Maps button, and that will allow you to select a county as well. Finally, you can click this Learn More blue button, which is in the bottom right corner of every map, to go to the data catalog page for that particular map, where you can learn more about the data, links to access it, documentation, and more. I'm going to talk more about our interactive maps in just a moment, but before I do, I want to highlight this brand new feature that is on our state pages, which is the addition of this drought overview section and a sidebar highlighting state drought resources. We added this section in response to usability testing that we conducted, a website survey we ran in the fall of last year, as well as website analytics and direct user feedback. It became clear to us that many people visit the state pages on drought.gov looking for state-specific drought information on drought declarations, water use restrictions, and other local and regional data. We added this section to help direct those users to relevant state drought websites, drought dashboards, state drought or water plans, state climate offices, and other key state drought resources. The other major update to these pages, which I alluded to before, are the additional interactive maps. So the new state pages include a variety of current conditions maps, including precipitation totals and 30 and 60-day percent of normal, temperature conditions, stream flow from the U.S. Geological Survey, soil moisture conditions, as well as the selection of outlooks and forecasts, including a quantitative precipitation forecast from the National Weather Service's Weather Prediction Center, as well as a variety of outlooks from NOAA's Climate Prediction Center, including 8 to 14-day temperature and precipitation outlooks and monthly and seasonal drought outlooks. Our state pages also contain an interactive historical time series graph showing 3 historical drought data sets side by side. Here you can see the U.S. Drought Monitor on a weekly basis going back to 2000, but we also have a 9-month standardized precipitation index, as well as paleoclimate data from NOAA's National Centers for Environmental Information. I won't go into too much detail on the interactivity of this graph right now, but I will say it's easy to jump to a particular time period, to zoom in and view it in more detail, to isolate a specific percentile category, and to download this image that you've customized as an image or as a CSV, XML, or JSON file. And we've added some new information and documentation on interpreting those downloads as well. We actually have this data available on different location pages at the state, HUC2 watershed, and county level on drought.gov. Finally, each of our state pages ends with a longer list of curated web resources around drought information in that state, including those key state and regional resources and organizations, ways to stay up to date and involved, and how to submit your local drought impacts to the Condition Monitoring Observer reports. Now, this was a really quick whirlwind tour of one of these state pages. With my last couple of minutes, I just want to highlight one particular feature of these new state pages, and that is the updated interactivity and customization for these maps. We've tried really hard to take information from a variety of different partners across government, academia, and other organizations, and serve it up in a way that makes it easier to view and share. So those of you who are familiar with drought.gov may have noticed that the maps on these pages and across the website look a little different than they used to. One of the new functionalities that we've added is interactivity to all of our legends on drought.gov. So for example, this is a map showing real-time stream flow from the U.S. Geological Survey compared to historical stream flow values. And if I hover over a particular category, such as below normal, this little pop-up will tell you exactly what percentile of historical stream flow values at this gauge fall into that below category, with a link to learn more from USGS. So this is just another way to make some of the more complicated legends or legends that require a little more explanation accessible on drought.gov. In addition, you can click these accordions for About to view a plain language description of the map as well as source information, and click the Update tab to view more information about how frequently the map is updated, sometimes with links to view more information about that update. Finally, for every single map on drought.gov, you can click this download map icon, which is in the top left corner of every map. And this will open up a larger customizable version of that map in a pop-up window. We did this to make it easier to customize and download images for easy sharing in your presentations, briefings, social media, newsletters, and more. Some of the things you can do with this, other than, of course, zooming in or out, as you can do with any of the maps, you can adjust the transparency of the data layer. You can change the base map. And you can overlay the current US Drought Monitor map alongside any of the maps on drought.gov. In addition, you can also display a variety of different geographic boundary outlines. The state pages have state and county lines displayed by default, but you can turn these on or off on any of our national maps as well. And you can also display tribal land areas as boundaries on these maps. Once you have the map looking the way you want it, click Save Map in the bottom corner of the pop-up window to download a high-quality PNG image. One other feature I want to highlight here, we created these to create helpful image downloads, but an additional functionality that you can use is if you zoom into a particular region of interest, you can go to the current data layer dropdown at the top left corner of the pop-up to easily jump between any of the other maps that are available on that same page. So in this case, the New Mexico state page. If you do, you'll notice that the zoom extent and the region that you've selected remains the same, making it easier to jump between different data from different sources and compare it for a particular region of interest. Now, that was a really quick whirlwind tour of these pages, but overall, I just want to end by saying that this is just the beginning for us. We updated these pages based on feedback from our users and our partners, but we're always looking for ways to continually improve our state pages and every page on drought.gov. So, for example, we're working on adding precipitation maps at longer timescales based on feedback from state partners. If you have any questions or any feedback at all on these pages, we would love to hear from you, and you can reach out to us at drought.portal@noaa.gov, and that contact information will be included in the webinar summary that's sent out as well. Thank you.
Kelsey, thank you so much. We have a question that came in for you, and you may want to be sharing your screen again, potentially for this one. And it was a question about trends. So a person's working in a much more localized area, and they would like to be able to share or show people trends in temperature or trends in precipitation. And so I know that you hit on very briefly how to find county level information, but is there any trend information, either temperature trends or precipitation trends, available in this portal?
That's a great question. So I'll show you one of our county pages. Our county level pages don't include temperature trends. They just include maps in the same way of current conditions or recent conditions. Like here's 30-day temperature anomalies. However, our local pages, so if you go to the by location section of drought.gov, you can click local, or you can type in your city or zip code here. And at the city level, we do have a little bit of a time series graph showing recent maximum temperatures from ACIS. Another great option, which you can access from the county, state, or local pages. And apologies, I went to Texas, which is not in the Southwest, but that's where I'm based. So that's the zip code I knew off the top of my head. If you go, this information here on precipitation rankings comes from NCEI's Climate at a Glance. And so going here, they also have a lot of great temperature information. So I think that would be a really good resource as well, this Climate at a Glance rankings, which you can Google or find through this link here for additional temperature information.
Excellent. Thank you so much. And we are on time. So thank you everyone for attending this webinar. And thanks to our presenters, Brian Fuchs with the National Drought Mitigation Center and Kelsey Satellino with the National Integrated Drought Information System. And also to my co-host, Laura Haskell, the Drought Coordinator for the Utah Division of Water Resources. This webinar will be posted on the drought.gov/webinars page. And our next briefing, again, 30-minute briefings every month on drought in the Southwest, will be July 25th at 1 p.m. Mountain Time. This concludes our webinar. Thank you for attending.